Our story begins in court. Our male lead is standing before the judge. He hurls curses on the judge and asks why he's been given community service for his offenses. South Korea is full of screwed up laws and he's a victim of it. Our guy says he's getting terrible treatment just cause he doesn't have a mother begging in his corner. He's been sentenced to 200 hours of community service for looting a jewelry store. The judge is unfazed. The angry young man grabs a chair and slams it hard on the ground so loud. The officers outside hear the loud crashing sound and rush into the courtroom to access the situation. Our male lead is Yunseong. He's with an old man, probably his grandpa. The man's trying to calm the angry teen. The officers rush to the judge's side and ask if he's doing all right. He's dumbfounded at the boy's outbursts. He's just a teenager yet he's so bold. He's got this disrespectful, nonchalant look in his eyes. The judge takes off his glasses. He says he's never met a brat like our male lead in all his 15 years working in juvenile court. The man is visibly enraged and he orders Yunseong to pick up the chair. His eyes are filled with rage. The boy insults him some more, raising his middle finger. He's going to get the full taste of the law soon. The judge passes a new judgment. He says by Yunseong's willful disobedience in court and the nature of his crime, it would appear the young teen has no probability of reformation. Grandpa is going crazy cause he knows where this is going. The judge sentences the defendant, Yunseong Lee by Juvenile Article 9 to serve time in a youth detention center. It's a law that allows minors to be sentenced to up to 6 months in a youth detention center, and that's where our guy is headed in no time. Time goes by. The new intakes arrive at the detention center in a van. The warden orders them all to get out of the van. This is where the outcome of those awful laws can be seen. Yunseong steps out of the vehicle and takes a look around the courtyard. There were so many guys in sight. Offenders of different sizes and looks. They looked frightening for teenagers for real. Our guy looked like a scared puppy with those dead eyes. They've arrived at the Yangchun School of Communications, aka Yangchun Youth Detention Center. The warder orders the new intakes to get in line. They were all here for different crimes and offenses. From theft to fraud to attempted sexual assault, contempt of court and many more. These were juvenile delinquents of all sorts. One of the guys in the courtyard takes notice of our male lead's hair color. It's familiar to him. He calls on our guy. He screams Yunseong's name out loud to call his attention. The warder orders Jihoon to stay back. This guy says he just wants to say hello to a familiar face. It's Yunseong Lee from Sangwon Middle School. Pals, I assume. Our guy greets Jihoon with a smile. The guy says he'd like to meet with our male lead later so they could catch up, and he asks Yunseong to meet up with him at Building B after their roll call. He's escorted away by the warden. Another warder walks up to our guy and asks if he's buddies with Jihoon. He says the guy's bad news around here. After all, he's in for something terrible. He says if our guy's truly buddies with Jihoon, then he's gotta be another punk. Yunseong is speechless. The warder whacks him hard on the face with the papers he's got in hand. The warder's a really big man. He seems to recognize our male lead and even calls his name. This warder was Yunseong Lee, an esteemed youth detention correctional officer. He asks why our guy threw a fit in court, if he really wanted to come to their detention center so bad. Our guy remains mute, he just stares in the face of the officer. The man grabs him by the shoulder and pulls him closer. The warder says they'll be seeing a lot of each other, so he'd like them to be pals. Mr. Yunseong Lee says he's the correctional officer, so he'll be in charge of Yunseong regardless. He keeps on blabbing and finally our guy cuts in. He's called the man's attention to something. Ahead of them is Jihoon and his crew. The guy asks what's on Jihoon's mind for the new intake. He says he knows our male lead quite well. Our guy was famous in middle school. His friend says he'd thought their school was full of screw-ups, so what exactly was Yunseong famous for? Jihoon switched up his aura and looked like a maniac. He says our guy's popular for being a big-time loser. They've got our guy backed up against a wall. It's a 3v1 situation they've got going on here. Jihoon lands multiple slaps on our guy's face, as he says it's nice to see him even though he'd never imagined they'd meet in a place like this. He pokes hard at Yunseong's face. Repeatedly talks about his face. Poking and poking like the maniac he is. In a rush, he grabs our guy by his hair. Jihoon asks if our guy thinks he's some cool guy just cause he got in trouble and made his way to juvie like the rest of them. Amidst all this, our guy hasn't said a single word. Jihoon says this whole situation brings him back. He recalls their past encounters in middle school. He says they had so much fun together and laughs. Jihoon says he remembers quite well how our guy attempted suicide in the school bathroom, and he laughed some more. He blames Yunseong for getting them suspended back then for bullying. Our male lead stares him in the face with almost no emotion in his eyes. He gets all disgusting, asks our guy to get but naked like old times. His statement gets a reaction from our male lead. A frown shows up on Yunseong's face. Seems this bully has hit a nerve. What's he going to do about it now? Our guy shuts his eyes for a second. He says he's missed the old times too. His words leave Jihoon in confusion. Yunseong is small in comparison to the huge bully who has him gripped by his hair. In no time, our guy grabs hold of Jihoon's ears. He's got this deranged look in his eyes. Our guy says he indeed came here to see Jihoon and kisses him. What? What did I just see? Back at the administrative office, the female officers close work for the day. They say bye to Mr. Lee, and appreciate him for offering to take the night shift tonight. He wishes them a safe trip home. The ladies were surprised. It's unlike Mr. Lee to willingly stay back extra hours by choice. He's in his seat, lost in thought, and he's sweating profusely. Something's on his mind. Back when he was blabbing on and on to our male lead, Yunseong said a few things that put him on a hot seat. Out of the blue, our male lead asks Mr. Lee if he's been assaulting minors. You could see the fear and shock in this warder's eyes at the words of this intake. Yunseong didn't look fazed asking this question. Mr. Lee asks what our guy was talking about. Our male lead gives him details. Yunseong says on the 6th of March, this very warder met up with a teenager from a dating app. He'd lied to her that he had a BMW, and tried to take her to his car to do something naughty. Our male lead says he knows everything. He calls the plate number of Mr. Lee's vehicle. He'd seen everything in the front of the park, near the alley with all the motels. It's crazy how it's all valid. The warder immediately bursts out in rage. He's screaming at the top of his voice, because he couldn't believe the attention to detail our guy was spewing right now. Fear grips Mr. Lee, and he's sweating so bad. He asks who Yunseong was. It's not normal for a new intake to have this much dirt on someone he's never met before. Yunseong Lee asks why our male lead has come here. He seems like a man on a mission. Our guy says he's looking for someone. His target is a bunch of juvenile offenders. In the next scene, Yunseong has Jihoon in a crazy position. The bully screams out in pain. Apparently, that kiss wasn't just a kiss. Our guy has crazy reflexes, and he doesn't fail to put them to use here. He buries his elbow in Jihoon's ugly, blooded face. He releases a couple of attacks in a rush. Yunseong is a man on a mission. He's come to get back at the bunch of people who ruined his life. Bastards who messed him up and got away with it because they were protected by the law. He's vengeful, he's bloodlusted, he's strong-willed too. These guys, whoever they were, they will all pay. The other thugs with Jihoon couldn't believe our guy put him down with those series of attacks. They rush him. Without letting go of Jihoon, our guy stretches out his legs and grabs hold of the other guy. So much skill and precision. Back at the court, Grandpa had tried to stop him from getting sentenced with a worse judgment, but he failed. He begged Yunseong to beg the judge, but our guy wasn't down for it. Too late, he got sentenced, and that's all he really wanted. A pathway to lead him to his enemies. Immediately he received his sentence, he got on his knees and bowed to the judge. The judge was beyond confused. He didn't know he'd just granted our guy his wish. Yunseong throws the other guy across the ground with his legs. The guys dash off in sheer horror of this beast they've attempted to mess with. They ran off to call the officer. In that brief moment of his attention taken away, our guy is attacked with a log of wood. Jihoon hits him hard across the head, and then all over his body with so much rage. Yunseong stands his ground amidst the countless attacks. He stands his ground. Jihoon says he can see our guy's been working out. He takes a big swing, wanting to end it all with this last hit. Yunseong intercepts his attack with a blow of his own. Then he showers the big guy with blows. He grabs hold of Jihoon, and with a spinning maneuver, he flips the big guy inside out. They are both on the ground now. Our guy's got him in an ankle lock. It's really solid. He takes it to the extreme and cracks Jihoon's ankle. The big guy cries out in pain. Our guy asks the same question Jihoon asked, if he'd been working out truly. He says he didn't. He's got no reason to work out because of their reunion. Jihoon's eyes were point blank, all white. All he could think of in his dire state was how on earth did the little guy get this good at fighting. Yunseong says he only just learnt how to fight from someone really famous too. All these skills, he built through hard training from one of the very best. Our guy switches it up a notch, he grabs hold of Jihoon's ankle once more and snaps it. The two guys have so much intensity on their faces right now. Jihoon screams out in agony. He can't take it. The pain is just too much for the big guy. Yunseong stands over him like a predator watching over its wounded prey. Jihoon squirms like worm as he wriggles around in pain. Somehow, the big guy still manages to hurl insults on our male lead even in his wounded state. Yunseong prepares to finish up what he started. He grabs hold of the big guy's other ankle. He grabs him in another ankle lock. Jihoon knows exactly what's up now. Our guy really wants to take his other ankle and render him immobile. Yunseong's red hair radiate with his bloodlusted eyes. He says he'd told the big guy he learnt how to fight, and begins cracking. Jihoon screams some more. Our guy is relentless. Holding onto the ankle with so much pressure and intensity, he's really going to snap this one too. The big guy begs and begs for mercy. He apologizes for everything. Jihoon says he's sorry for bullying our male lead, he's sorry for mocking Yunseong's parents, for making our guy an outcast, for everything. He begs. And begs. He says he'll never be able to walk again if he loses both his ankles. He apologizes some more. Right about the same time, the detention officer races towards them with a guy following behind. The officer sights our male lead from afar off. He's stunned to see Yunseong in a peculiar position. At a different time, our guy's fighting instructor was surprised to hear the little boy wanted to learn how to fight, so he asks why. Our guy looked battered, but he had an endgame. It's because the law sucks. That's why he wants to learn to fight. He so much desires to take revenge with his own hands. South Korea is full of screwed-up flaws. His fighting instructor asks who he wants to take revenge on, no other than the product of those screwed-up laws. The officer races towards him and screams Yunseong Lee's name, but he was too late. Our male lead snaps the other ankle and smiles in satisfaction. He's only just began his revenge. Things are going to get real ugly. In South Korea, the most common charge for juvenile offenders is assault. By statistics, it totals 21,948 cases, and the most common type of crime is damages. Statistics has it at 956 offenders. The reason for these crimes were almost laughable. Chance and curiosity were the two major reasons for these offenses. Down on the floor, Jaehoon cries out in pain. He pleads for mercy, but our guy doesn't budge. Yunseong succeeds in snapping his other ankle. The guard runs in their direction, also screaming at the top of his voice. He was still speaking when our male lead released his opponent. Our guy asks the officer if he'd like to know why he's doing what he's doing. Yunseong laughs and leans closer to Mr. Lee. He says he'd told the officer his plans to have revenge here, and he wasn't talking about just Jaehoon. What Jaehoon did to him is literal child's play compared to the guys he's after. These words shook the officer. Our guy looks him in the eye and laughs like a maniac. There's another prisoner in sight, he's got someone in his hands. Another guy walks up and updates him on Jaehoon's situation. Someone told him their guy's ankles have been broken by some new intake at the correctional detention center. From what he's heard, this new intake is a complete freak, and he's got a serious beef with Jaehoon. His name's Yunseong Lee. The shirtless guy knows this name quite well, and he stops in his tracks. The guy on his knees is serving a punishment, or something, because he's counting numbers. The shirtless guy repeats our male lead's name. He's quite surprised our guy made his way here. This guy is Sang-keol Park. He's a former kickboxing amateur medalist and Yunseong's next target. How's this going to play out? Flashback to their days from middle school. Sang-keol is watching a video on the net, and he's excited to see a bottle of cola blowing up when mints were added, and he wonders if it's real. He and the guys thinks it's so cool and they plan to try it out later. The guys set out to wreak havoc somewhere else. Sang-keol asks someone if they really can't tell the difference between piss and a juice they've got by the taste alone. The person in question is Yunseong. Our guy is getting bullied once again. They set 2 cups in front of him and asks him to have a taste of its content. These guys really want to test their idiotic theory, and they've decided our male lead is the perfect subject for their experiment. So cruel. Sang-keol grabs hold of both the cups. He says one is his piss and the other is the terrible tasting juice. It's gross, yet they are laughing their heads off. Sang-keol's curiosity was different from most people. The people around try to stop him. They plead with the bully to stop this madness, but all he does is smile. He was an unusual kid. It was as if he was cursed with a thirst for knowledge, seeing, as he was curious about the craziest things and pretty much everything. He scrolls on his phone and finds something interesting to him. Next thing we know, he's talking to our male lead about his most recent search. He asks if Yunseong knows what happens if a man takes laxatives and diarrhea medicine together at the same time. These words make our guy tense. Hot beads of sweat appear on his face. Yunseong has become the target for his curiosity. The comments on the video he just watched already gave an answer to his curiosity, but he still wanted to test it out. The result was that your intestines stop working after consuming those substances, and it's very dangerous. It's advised that the viewers do not try it out. Sadly, Sang-keol isn't like any other average viewer. The comments pretty much stir Sang-keol's curiosity to a new height, and he bursts into laughter at the thought of it. They tried it out with our male lead and even got it all on video. The target was Yunseong Lee. Our poor male lead had been through so much at the hands of these bullies. Sang-keol is pleased with the results he's witnessing. The crew lead our guy away, and he's helping them carry all their bags almost like a slave. They are all heading out of school, and something comes to the big guy's mind. He asks if our male lead's parents are home. The question speaks danger. Our guy could tell trouble was brewing, and he tried to deny his parents being absent, but the bully didn't buy it. Sang-keol says he's certain our guy's full family weren't home. They all troop to our male lead's home. The crew rush in and immediately begin pulling the place apart. Our guy tries his hardest to stop them from ruining things, and he does this with his words alone. They don't pay him any attention. He's still got their bags wrapped around him, and he tries to stop them from destroying property, but it's proving difficult. One of the guys asks for the location of their home's laundry basket. So random, right? What could he possibly want with dirty laundry? Someone calls on Yunseong from behind him and the voice keeps him still. It's like he froze from the shock and now he's sweating profusely. The guy taps our male lead's forehead and says he believes Yunseong has a fever. He asks if our guy's all right. Could he be sick? Yeah, I'd definitely down if I were the one being harassed time and time again. I can only wonder what's going through Yunseong's mind right that instant. He offers our guy some pills. Naive little young man took them, and even appreciated the bully for his evil deed. Sang-yeol claims Yunseong will feel better in no time if he took the pills. Our guy had thought they were starting to become friends. It was for a short while though, because what happened next was beyond tragic. Little did our male lead know about the consequences of taking those pills. In few seconds, our guy's vision became blurry. Something was very wrong. The guys in front of him became mere shadows laughing hard at him. Yunseong felt like he was floating in a pool. He was all smiles staring into the nothingness. The bullies say the celebrity from the video on the net had said it felt like bugs were crawling over his body when he took these same said pills. They wonder amongst themselves what the contents of this cold medicine was because our male lead was smiling and laughing without reason. In that brief moment, Yunseong wasn't in his right senses. He really felt like he was floating in water, and even those evil bullies all looked silly in his eyes. That's the reason for his laughter. It was all so pathetic. From the pool, our guy sees himself sprinting on an open field. He's overjoyed in a fantasy land. He stops in his tracks at the sight of Sang-yeol, but he didn't look like an ordinary human here. He could see a floating head, with a practical invisible neck on that horrid face. He looked more like a demon with the horns, slit tongue and the claws too. The weird-looking Sang-yeol hands him a towel, and our guy takes it from him. Our male lead asks if they spilled anything by any chance. Seeing as he just handed him a towel. Sang-yeol talks about the microwave. What about it? What evil schemes have they prepared for our male lead? Something bad is about to happen. I just feel it in my bones. From the car park outside our guy's apartment seems like a really nice place. Next thing we know, it's blown to bits. A massive explosion in the apartment. What just happened? It makes no sense. Next thing we hear is loud sirens. There's a problem. I knew it. Doctors and nurses attend to the wounded victim. They check his vitals. It's an emergency. The nurses say his heart rate is at an all-time high, he's breathing too fast. His pulse is dropping. Are they going to lose him? It's Yunseong Lee. He's in the ICU. His situation seems critical. He's practically surviving on oxygen, and he's got these thick bandages covering a big portion of his head. The men in the background all have big frowns on their faces. They don't look remorseful for the wounded teenager in the sickbed. Why? Our guy's conscious and they are here to speak to him. The two men are police officers from the Seodong Police Department. They are certain someone put a towel in our guy's microwave. That's the reason they are here today. Yunseong has no memory of what they are saying, he's still trying to process his reality. The one thing he was sure of was the fact he wasn't himself back then. Those few moments of bliss and utter madness weren't at all normal. Sadly, the occurrence spelt the complete destruction of his home. It was all burnt up and he got an ugly scar for it. Luckily he survived, but it was the turning point of his life for sure. On his first day back at school, Sang-yeol and his goons meet up with him. What more could they possibly want? These guys were serious thorns in his flesh. The goons were pleased with the results of their sick experiment. Sankiol in particular was overjoyed to see an explosion way bigger than what he saw on YouTube. He was practically spilling it all. He says a member of his crew even started fanning the flames with a book to try to put it out, and he burst into maniacal laughter. For some weird and confusing reason, Sankiol asks our guy to thank him. For what? He says for all the trouble he had carrying out guy to the first floor. Amidst all these words, no response came from our male lead. His nonchalant look and silence pissed Sankiol off so bad he was ready to hand our guy a beatdown. He says he saved Yunseong's life and for that reason our guy should be grateful. He's a maniac. A moron and a maniac. He practically endangered our guy's life, and now he's claiming to have saved him. He's freaking out as he demands a thank you from our male lead. So many thoughts were running through Yunseong's mind. Something stood out for him. He's realized something over time from being bullied so badly. The most frightening thing about being bullied is when you're up against someone who doesn't understand common logic. That someone is no other than Sankiol. Big, strong and dumb Sankiol. The frustration of not knowing what to say and imagining the fear makes the victim just want to give up. It was more or less him against everyone else. Finally he spoke, with a shaky voice. Yunseong says thank you to the big guy. This must be the peak of it. It's so sad. In the next scene, our guy arrives home. It's a new place. It's more like a shelter, or a small place they are staying for the time being. Seeing as their old place was blown up and they need a roof over their heads. Our guy steps in and he's got a dejected look on his face. The sight of his mother and grandmother bawling out in tears is the first thing he sees getting home from school. His mom says she just finished speaking to the officers from the police statement, and she asks if her little boy told the officers he set the house on fire. Confusion grips our male lead. Him? Set the house on the fire? How? When? Yunseong assures his mother he did no such thing. She doesn't buy it. She'd heard all his friends testified against him. They all said he did it. One after the other, the crew all blamed it on Yunseong Lee. One of the guys said our male lead took some kind of pill. Everyone took turns to bury him in lies. Sankiol was a key witness. He says he saw every single thing. He claims our guy set his house on fire. They said this cause they believed they couldn't get punished because they were all kids. They are all still little teenagers. His mother was losing her mind at the thought of it. She begins pulling and pushing Yunseong, demanding to know what the way forward was for them now. As if stands, they won't get the payout from their insurance, and there's a high chance they might even get sued for insurance fraud because of her son's actions. With the way everything looks, they won't even be able to pay for the damages they've caused their neighbors. Everything is ruined. Their family is ruined. Yunseong was broken. Something has gone very wrong in his head. Just look at those dead eyes. Back in the present, our guy is being led to his cell by the detention officer. Sankiol is in his cell and he's wondering if it's truly Yunseong Lee his guy was blabbing on about. Their cell door creaks open. Mr. Lee calls the attention of the cell members and makes an announcement. He says there was an unfortunate incident not too long ago, and for that reason they've all gotten a new temporary roommate. The detention officer asks them to treat him nice since he's new here. He asks the cell members to help the new inmate out if he's having any trouble. He slams the door shut and takes his leave. I know that red hair. It's got to be Yunseong Lee. Who else could it be? The inmates all wonder what the unfortunate incident really was. One of the guys asks what our male lead did to get the warden's favor. His words didn't completely leave his mouth before he's stunned with a hard kick to the face. The impact sends him flying. His body hits the floor hard. The other inmates are unfazed. Our guy is yet to show his face. He's got his bed folded up covering his face from their line of sight. They all rush at him to take him down. Sang-yeol stands behind them, he's practically burning up in rage at the sight of his guys getting pummeled by one guy. Finally our male lead speaks. He says he's here to see someone special. He's here to see a guy who's brimming with curiosity. Alright, Sang-yeol is starting to get the vibe. He calls Yunseong by his name. He asks again if it's really Yunseong Lee from middle school. Our guy puts down the fabric he's got in hand since stepping into the room. At the sight of him, Sang-yeol bursts into laughter and points at our guy like he's inferior to him. I know it's going to get messy real soon. Our male lead looks him in the eye. He's like a predator preparing to devour his prey. Yunseong Lee says they're a way to defeat a pro kickboxer with just a finger, and he asks if Sang-yeol knows about it. Oh my oh my. The man brimming with curiosity is about to get tutored. The big guy asks what our male lead is talking about. He laughs in ridicule. He says he'd like to know how that's a possibility. How can a kickboxer be defeated so easily? Yunseong is pleased to hear it. He's happy to see Sang-yeol still hungry for random knowledge and facts about the strangest things. He lets out a villainous smile and says he'd show the big guy just what he's talking about. It's going to be intense. Will the big guy's curiosity finally be quenched? We'll find out real soon. Enjoying this story so far? Drop a comment showing your interest in a part 2 and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, adios.